Welcome to the MHS Cast broadcast live stream. My name is Guy Danhoff, and I'll be hosting tonight's first episode to kick off the fall 2022-2023 school year. Tonight, we're going to be talking about mental health, looking at the trauma-informed approaches using the Wisc Model as well as SEL. If you're not familiar with who I am, my name is Guy Danhoff, and I'm certainly the host of our podcast. I actually have been working on my 5th year now with Missouri Healthy Schools as I oversee our outreach as well as our digital media manager. I'm also the creative director for Missouri Healthy Schools. You might be familiar with our work. If you were to go to our YouTube channel, you'd find that we have On the Move School Success Story advocacy videos. So that's a little bit about me, but let's get right into the action because I'm so excited tonight as we're going to bring on one of our guests, and that's going to be none other than Sarah Parrish. And Sarah, just want to say thank you for being here on the podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So it's going to be a lot of fun because let's get a little background about you. You are a licensed Missouri social worker, public health educator, working with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, and you work directly for the CDC Foundation.
Yeah, so I am employed by the CDC Foundation. I'm contracted with the Department of Health and Senior Services on the school health team. I work with Marge Cole, the state school nurse consultant, and that's a great position. The school health team is an amazing team.
Excellent. Hey, how about that? We actually have Shape America's president, Dr. Kim Ballard, saying hello to all. And I know this topic is very near and dear to Kim, and certainly in Shape America, as we're going to be talking about the Wisc model as well as SEL. So, Sarah, I kind of want to just dive right in, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
And let's kind of start with right away, which is kind of really important. Could you maybe give our audience an idea of a state of the union? What is now going on with mental health, specifically in education, now that we're back to school?
Yeah, so we all know that we just had this pandemic, and we found out that during the pandemic, the proportion of emergency department visits for mental health skyrocketed, increased. And it increased among kids aged 5 to 11, kids aged 12 to 17. We saw a 31% increase in emergency department visits for mental health in adolescents. That's shocking, So, and those things associated with that stress and trauma associated with the pandemic, well, that's carried on to the school, right? And when you're struggling with your mental health, you can't learn, right? We know that. That's easy. That's an easy connection to make. So schools are recognizing this, and they are realizing that their academic outcomes are tied to the mental health of their students, and they're trying to find solutions for that.
Absolutely. And when you look at this, what kind of measures that you see are starting to see schools do to actually, kind of address the mental health going on right now in their schools?
Yeah, so there's a lot of directions schools are taking. They're trying to link up with the mental health services in their community so they can have that relationship and do those referrals. They're implementing social emotional learning curriculums. They're implementing, they're doing things like focus rooms and calm corners, and really recognizing that we have to help students learn to regulate their emotion and build some resilience to overcome some of these stressors in their lives.
Absolutely. So one of the things I want to ask you about, because I found this interesting when we were talking about a title, you specifically added, it wasn't enough just to talk about mental health, but you specifically used the words trauma-informed approaches. What do you mean by that?
So Missouri is actually pretty progressive when it comes to being trauma informed. So Missouri has the Missouri Model for trauma informed schools, and it's a whole model of what schools can do to make their school more trauma informed. So what do we mean when we say trauma informed? Mm-hmm. We recognize that a lot of children have experienced trauma, some significant trauma, maybe less so, especially when we're talking in terms of the pandemic. We all collectively experienced a trauma. Now, we experienced it on different levels and magnitudes, but we all did experience some trauma with that. So when you're being trauma informed, your goal is to not re-traumatize. Your goal is to not trigger. We've heard that word triggered. Oh, they're triggered. Our goal is to not trigger that trauma response, to not bring back up that trauma, but instead approach in a way that is aware of that trauma and sort of protective of that feeling of safety.
Absolutely. And I know one of the things that schools do use, because I've had the opportunity on the Missouri Healthy Schools on the Move Missouri advocacy videos, we've actually worked with a few school districts that talked about what we're going to talk about next, and that is the Wisc Model. And I was wondering if you could share with our audience, maybe you've never even heard of the Wisc Model before, and obviously some have, but let's just say you've never heard of it. Could you, quickly frame for us what are the 5 tenets of the whole school, whole child, whole community initiative, otherwise known as the Wisc Model?
Yeah, so it's built on these 5 tenets, like you said, and the 5 tenets are healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. So we want every child that's coming into school to be healthy, and that includes their physical health. We're talking about physiological needs as well, and their mental health. We want to be sure that they are physically safe, that they are emotionally safe, that they are mentally safe. We want them to be engaged in schools. We want them connected with their teachers. We want them to feel supported. We want school to be a place that they feel belonging. And then once we reach all of those tenets, then we can put a little pressure on them, challenge them a little, right? So they can grow. So this is really grounded in, and this is going to get pretty nerdy. This is grounded in what's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Maslow basically said that you have a hierarchy of needs, like a pyramid, and your very basic needs are your physiological needs: shelter, food, clothing, and then you have a need for safety. Right. And Maslow says that if our brains are concentrating on those basic, bottom tier needs, we cannot focus on the higher level needs, like learning and building our self-esteem and making relationships and connections. So that's what I love about the whole school, whole child approach, is really grounded in what Maslow was saying.
Absolutely. And I was wondering, Sarah, if you could frame something for us. We actually have 2 comments, and Dr. Kim Ballard puts out, sounds like we need to teach this in our teacher education programs. And specifically what she's talking about is what you just defined, the trauma informed. Yeah. What are your thoughts on, looking at, getting more professional development wrapped around the trauma informed mindset?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's why we came up with the Missouri Model for trauma-informed schools, is so teachers would understand some of these responses, some of these trauma responses, because a trauma response from a child that's maybe experienced significant trauma, it looks like a behavior issue. Right. It's eloping from the classroom. It's maybe aggression. And really, a lot of times, if you can boil that down to where that behavior is coming from, it's a response to some past trauma. So if we can help teachers understand this, then we can help them understand, okay, now how do you help a child that is in a trauma response regulate? And it shifts the model from a punishment model to, okay, let's build these coping skills.
Right. So, Sarah, what I thought we would do now was bring on another special guest, and let's bring on right now Amy Ruzicka. And hi, Amy.
Hello.
And I'll give everyone a little bit of background on Amy. Amy actually happens to be the superintendent for the Bayless School Districts right here in Missouri. And, Amy, thanks for jumping in on tonight's conversation. And let's pick it up right where from Sarah left off. She kind of talked about what we need to be doing in schools. Obviously, with you being the superintendent, kind of operationalize this for us as we go from the trauma-informed mental health to using the Wisc model.
Yes, absolutely. So some of the places, and I think back to our overall strategic plan, I think to our board policy, we were really intentional about looking at our district wellness policy to make sure it aligned with the Wisc model. And so one of the pieces that we added very intentionally was social and emotional learning, that it's,
right.
We talk about nutrition, we talk about physical activity, we talk about, again, safety, but including that mental health piece. Also in our district strategic plan, making sure that that is a focus area. And again, that we are representing all tenants of the Wisc model. Likewise, our building improvement plan. So we're setting goals, not just around academics, but about all of the other components of wellness that cause our students to succeed academically. And all of this work is really driven by our district wellness council, which when we talk about an integrated model, that's when we're bringing in our food service director, our mental health professionals, our nursing staff, community members, our physical education teachers. Right. And so it truly is an all hands on deck approach. And it's embedded again in our board policy and our strategic plan. And really everything that we do stems from that. So it is very operationalized.
And one other thing I'd like you to comment on, I had the privilege and opportunity recently to interview you as part of our Next on the Move that comes out actually next week. So stay tuned for that. But one of the things I learned was also to the extent of what you learned from COVID over the last 3 years. Talk to us about the HVAC systems. Like when you were talking to me about that, I was like, HVAC? What? So talk to us about what you're doing with all your facility improvements.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the pieces, and research has been around for a while related to the importance of air quality on student learning. And so COVID really brought that to the center and made that a major focus, that, we need to be very intentional about the fresh air that we're bringing in, but also some of the allergens, with asthma on the rise and other allergies, and then also contagious disease and just all of the droplets. And so one of the things that we've really invested in is upgrading and improving our HVAC systems so that we have high quality air filtration, and then also replacing windows so that they are functional and can allow that fresh air to come in. Again, we want our students to have a high quality educational environment, which includes, again, safe schools, highly effective instruction, and then also, lighting that, it's great to get that natural light, great lighting, and then also the air that they breathe. We want it to be as clean and healthy as possible. So that's really been a focus area of ours.
Yeah, and the nice thing is we're actually going to be talking about that in that On the Move video that comes out next week. But Amy, thank you for jumping in the conversation. But stick around. We got a lot more to talk about. Mm-hmm. So, Sarah, is there anything else you want to bring up about the Wisc model? Because I think then we want to get into the SEL piece.
Yeah, I mean, I what I love about the Wisc model is that it is very much a trauma-informed approach.
Yeah.
It connects very hand in hand with that trauma-informed approach, looking at safety, looking at engaging, looking at the relationship, adults building relationships, caring relationships with children. And it ties in all of those pieces, all of those tenets tie in so well to a trauma-informed approach. So it's a model that I really like.
Absolutely. And just let everyone know, you'll be seeing a lot more coming out from Missouri Healthy Schools regarding the Wisc model, as several school districts have really doubled down in that area using this model as they obviously roll out the programs throughout the school districts wide. So with that, let's now shift into SEL. Again, Sarah, Again, let's pretend that no one's ever heard of SEL. So I'm going to ask the question, what is social emotional learning? But the bigger question is, why is it so important for schools today in 2022?
Yeah, so social emotional learning, it gets shortened to SEL often. Basically, it's teaching that piece that we all have to learn about relationships, about self-management, self-awareness, self-regulation. It's also relationship skills. It's also responsible decision making. So it's that part of learning that we need that isn't so much math, science, English. It's the social part, right? It's understanding our emotions. And why is this important? This is important because if you are not able to cope with sort of stressful situations through self-management, through emotional management, through self-awareness, that is going to hinder your success in life, right? It's going to hinder your success academically. If you are not able to emotionally regulate, you're not going to be able to learn fractions, right? If you're not able to calm yourself down from maybe a stressful interaction, that's going to get in the way of your academics. So that's why it's important for schools, if they want their academic outcomes, to improve, then we can look at what's happening on the social emotional learning front. And some of the things that we learn in social emotional learning is building resilience. That's a buzzword, right? We've heard resilience. Resilience is just a fancy way of saying when I'm faced with something difficult, when I'm faced with that challenge, I have the skills to handle it, right? So some of our kids that are coming from backgrounds of serious trauma, they don't have those those emotional regulation skills. They don't have those self-regulation skills. When they're faced with even maybe a small challenge, it's, I can't do math, I hate school, and they're running out of the classroom. When really, they just don't have that resilience built up. They don't have those coping skills yet.
Absolutely. So, Amy, let's now throw the question your way, because this is something that, in fact, your school is actually doing, and you're very intentional about it. And you've actually got some research that you started. So I'll let you start the conversation, and then you can even introduce our next guests.
All right, thank you. So something that you said really struck home. We often use the phrase Maslow before Bloom. So when we think about Bloom's taxonomy and higher order thinking, we need to make sure that our students feel safe, they feel regulated, they feel connected. And so we implemented in our elementary school a 1, 2, 3 wellness approach, where in the morning and then periodically throughout the day, students would go through a mindfulness exercise of taking a deep breath, thinking about, just grounding themselves. What do I see? What do I hear? Right. Taking a deep breath and identifying a feeling. And so being able to, as young as kindergarten, identify an emotion, and then to work on a self-care strategy given that emotion. So we had students, it was really sweet, feeling happy. And so to continue that happy emotion, they could give someone a compliment or practice gratitude or write in their journal. If they're feeling sad, they could ask someone for a hug. And so we got a great picture of 2 second graders, consoling one another with the calming corners if they need a break. So this work that we were doing, this kind of tier 1 universal support, was intended to be utilized not only at structured times throughout the day, but if the students were feeling dysregulated, they could practice 1, 2, 3 wellness, even, from the comfort of their desk, calming corner, or if they needed to go to the office. So we had 2 research studies done from 2 different universities, Missouri Baptist and the University of California, San Diego, to look at correlations between this wellness practice with that self-regulation and attendance and academic achievement. And both, as we would expect, found a statistically significant relationship between that regulation and students' achievement and attendance.
Nice.
Wow. And this is a great question from Anna Trainer. Are there resources for parents to learn more about trauma informed in SEL?
Yeah, there are tons of resources out there. A good resource for learning about SEL is the acronym is CASEL, CASEL. It's
Yeah.
the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Uh, I like CASEL. You can search every possible SEL curriculum. They have, you can filter it by age, school, your primary focus. So Castle is a good one. I would check out Castle if you are interested in more SEL information.
That's excellent. And the other thing, I'll just throw it on the screen now, just because the timing is Missouri Healthy Schools. We also have ours that I'll put up there. And we've got a lot that we actually link to with the CDC Healthy Schools. Tremendous resources there again that you can go to at healthyschools.com. So again, we've got you covered. And again, a lot of these links and resources are coming straight from the CDC or CDC Healthy Schools. And also, Sarah, I'm very familiar with Castle, and that's also a fantastic resource. So with that, Amy, let's talk about Sarah kind of set the bar here. She talked about, you've got to be in the right state of mind. You've got to be able to have the regulation skills. But let's talk about now what you did with your assistant principal and working on a study with your sixth graders. So let's bring him on now. We're going to bring up Andrew Mertens. Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Andrew happens to be the Bayless Middle School assistant principal and brings lots of street credibility to this one. He's a former health and physical educator. Andrew, if you could talk to us a little bit about what you did with the sixth graders this past school year.
Yeah, so last year, towards the end of the school year, we had a visit at our district wellness committee. Dr. Tom Louighrey actually attended our meeting, and he talked about some research that he had done that kind of piqued an interest in the members of our district wellness committee. And we decided to take a look at was there a correlation between the number of healthy fitness zones that students are able to achieve as well, and between that and attendance and grades. And so what we did is we took a look at the sixth grade students towards the end of the school year, and we had been tracking their progress to determine, how many, is what we were doing and being very intentional about, was it improving their healthy fitness zones? But beyond that, was the healthy fitness zones that they were able to achieve actually moving the needle, so to speak? Because we want to obviously, whenever possible, improve those other two indicators. And what we did see was that the students who achieved the highest levels of healthy fitness zones also had the highest numbers in terms of their average GPA as a group and their percentage of daily attendance. So we did see that there was a correlation that was in effect there.
Those are fantastic results. And obviously, I know that when I interviewed you, both of you just recently, that was kind of step one or phase one. And Amy, why don't you talk to us about what you're planning on doing moving forward and getting involved with some of the other grades?
Yes, absolutely. So, just gathering that data and we talked earlier about systems and structures. And so we want to embed that in everything that we do. And that data component is huge. So the next piece, it's to continue look at this longitudinally, but also again, expanding grade levels. We also do some social emotional learning assessments of our students. And so then correlating that component. So we're looking at the physical fitness, we're looking at academic achievement, we're looking at attendance, and then also at their social emotional well-being. And we measure things like growth mindset, grit, social awareness, emotion regulation, supportive relationships. So really being able to, with the Wisc model in mind, bring all of those pieces together to quantify our work and the effects that it's having.
Absolutely. And then Andrew, if you could speak to this part of it. So beyond that study, you're also doing this with the whole community. Like Sarah talked about, this isn't just for the students, it's about the community. and kind of frame for us just a few things that you are all doing at Bayless regarding your school wellness.
Absolutely. So, as Amy had spoken about earliest on, our district wellness committee is kind of the hub of all of this. And as well as our partnership with Missouri Healthy Schools, we were able to obtain a grant and get some fitness equipment, rowers, suspension trainers, with the objective of trying to present opportunities for our staff to be active and improve their overall wellness as a whole. We've implemented mindful moments holistically as a school at the junior high, where we lead off with an opportunity to calm yourself, get yourself in a good headspace, and then kind of reflect on what you're hoping to accomplish for the day. We are doing the same thing in our PE classes. They recognize that the students spend so much time where they are constantly having to maintain focus, be very sharp, and they're starting all of their classes with a relaxing moment there as well. We've taken strides in what we're doing in terms of the food that we're offering to our staff and students. We have basically approached education for our junior high and high school students, as well as our elementary students, as it relates to sugary drinks and ditching them. What are healthy replacements? And we've partnered with Brooke Harrington, who is our wonderful director of food services, to educate students about other healthy options that are available to them. In addition to this, we have open fields. So our soccer field is open to our community, so that there are opportunities for community members to not only become engaged and a part of our school community, but to be physically fit and active as well. So it's not uncommon for our students to be having a PE class that is taking place out on the field, doing some sort of fitness testing, while at the same time having community members that are either running or walking the track alongside them.
That's pretty amazing. Sarah, what's your reaction to hearing what Bayless School District is doing in the classroom with the students, with their teachers, and now with the community?
Yeah, I am a fan. I'm loving it. I love a good mindful moment myself. So, and I love that you are extending this program to the community, because school kids, we're sending them out into the community, right? We can create the perfect environment in our school buildings, and we can create those great relationships, but then we have to send them out into the community. Right. And will they still have those protective factors? Will they still have those resources that they need? And involving the community, and the community setting an example. And how great is it for your students to go out to their PE class and see adults from the community taking care of their physical health? What an amazing example. I love it. I love all of it. You guys are doing amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, they are. And we have one last guest. Andrew, you kind of tee it up a little earlier, but we could not do this broadcast without him. And I want to bring on right now Dr. Tom Louighrey, that you actually referenced when you were talking about what inspired the study. And this is Dr. Louighrey. Tom is the Missouri Society of Health and Physical Educators. The group's called MOSHAPE. He is our executive director. I actually am the president-elect. I will be president of this organization in exactly 30 days. And yes, I'm a little excited. So Tom, we're so thankful you're here. What is your reaction to hearing everything I've heard from Sarah and, of course, our great friends here at Bayless?
Well, we just need much more of this, guy. This is a discussion that is deep. It's focusing on a lot of factors that are building the health culture in school districts and communities. And the Wisc model not only looks at the 5 whole child tenants, but also has a model that brings the community and district administrators into the picture. And this is what Amy and Andrew have done so well in Bayless. We have a few other districts doing the same. Farmington School District has an exemplary program where it just permeates everything in the community. And that's the purpose of this. This isn't just for the children, but it's for the entire educational community and the citizens as well. Because as Amy could tell you, and Sarah could tell you, a lot of the trauma-informed applies to the school staff as well.
Right.
And so we cannot forget about what they do. But I really like what Andrew and Amy have done with Bayless, because the first thing that they did for accountability was to make sure that they had a wellness goal that was a part of their school improvement plan. That is one of the reportable factors to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So they've addressed this with their board, that the board understands that they have to have policies, practices, and programs that relate to their programs and move them forward. So from the MOSHAPE standpoint, we're very excited to have Amy and Ashley attend and be co-keynote speakers at our convention in just 4 weeks. And so more people need to be aware of this. More districts have to be involved in this, and we have to spread the word so that the districts not only involved with more healthy schools, but throughout the state have models like this, because this type of reporting, it's goal setting, it's putting plans in place to collect data and to be able to use the data in meaningful matters. And that's what they've been able to do. And when the school board sees this, when the people, the citizens of the community see this, support for education goes way up. And so what they're doing with the Wisc model, SEL, trauma-informed and everything, is really improving the health culture of the district and the community. And we hold them up as the models that any district can follow and should model. That's why we're using them as ambassadors. So Andrew and Amy, you're going to be called on a lot more. And this is the type of action that focuses on the child, all members of the educational community as well, so that you come to school in a positive frame of mind, because without that, you're not going to have a positive effect on others. And so it's from the top down. You look at the first model in the castle tenants, self-awareness. Who are you? What are you here for? What do you do? What's the baggage you have? Keep that at home. When you come to work, you're going to smile, make other people feel accepted and respected. And if we can do those things, and Guy, I know that you're on track with this because we talk every day, and it's going to be a wonderful year moving forward. And we're going to do much more to impact the school districts through their administrators and have the same type of leadership that Ashley Krause and Amy Ruzicka and Andrew Mertens are providing to us. So I'm delighted to be here. And one last thing, Kim, the answer is yes. Not only yes, but I'll reach out tomorrow because we have ideas. We think alike. Thanks for the comment.
Absolutely, Tom. I just want to say thanks for joining the broadcast. And yeah, it's really cool. Thank you, Tom. All right. So, Sarah, you said something really profound, and I want you to echo that as we start to wrap up the show. You said schools in many communities are the center or the hub. Talk to us a little bit more about that. And then also, now that we've learned what just one school district is doing, how we can continue this momentum moving forward.
Yeah, so schools, especially in smaller communities, and I know Bayless is a larger community, but schools in especially smaller communities, they're kind of the center, you know. Yeah. It's where you go to athletic games, you go to parent-teacher night, and you talk to all your friends. So schools are kind of a happening place. So when you have this model, this Wisc model that you're implementing in a school, well, it sort of makes sense to start it in that center, you know, for that school to be the hub of that, you know, community change. So yeah, that's another thing I like about the Wisc model is, you know, schools sometimes are the heartbeat of communities. And where I kind of see this going, I think more schools are becoming more aware of mental health of their students. They're becoming more aware of the resources that are available. We, on the school health team, we work primarily with school nurses. School nurses are hungry for this information. They are hungry for the mental health interventions. I get questions all day long of, hey, I've got a student experiencing this. How can I support them? What can I link them up with? And so as part of the school health team, we have redesigned our entire website, and we have a mental health just page on there that I set up. It's got gobs and gobs and gobs of resources that I kind of tried to gear towards our school nurses, because they did want this information. And I think probably teachers and administrators are the same. They are recognizing these concerns and they want to help because they care about their students. They care about the well-being of their students. They care about, it's not just about academic outcomes. It's about actually having just so much care for these students and caring that they succeed academically, but succeed, just in life.
Absolutely. And what I'd like to do to kind of wrap up the broadcast is just, what advice would you have maybe for folks that are working in schools, whether you're a nurse, a school administrator like Amy and Andrew, you're a frontline teacher, whether you're health or physical education or any subject, because you can be part of school wellness out of any school curriculum. So Sarah, I'll start with you and then Andrew will wrap up with you. So Sarah, what advice would you have for folks now? They've listened to this broadcast. Hopefully they've been somewhat inspired by that. We're actually making some traction in this area as we're battling trauma-informed mental health. But what advice would you maybe have for some of our listeners?
Guy, that is a beautiful question. You just soft taught that one to me. And here's what I would say, because we know that children are experiencing trauma, but we also know the biggest protective factor. Oh my gosh, my dogs are going nuts. The biggest protective factor that children can have, and they've found this with the ACE study, they've found this with all sorts of studies, is the presence of one single adult in their life, a single stable, caring adult in the lives of these children that have experienced really significant trauma. That is the biggest protective factor in building resilience and in building coping skills, just having that relationship. So if you care about a student, build a relationship with them. It's the easiest one. It's, you don't have to learn a breathing technique. You don't have to learn, a therapeutic technique. Just make a connection. Just be that one adult in their life that cares about them, that every single day says hello, that says, you know what, Tommy, how are you today? I love those shoes. Make a connection, build a relationship, because that one small act is a buffer against the trauma that they're experiencing.
Yeah. Sarah, that's powerful, very much so. And wow, thank you for sharing that. Amy, let's now go to you. You're at the superintendent level, and I know that your world has changed drastically since this past July, from being the assistant superintendent to being the superintendent. And let's talk about in your circles, as you work with some of the very top superintendents in our entire state, what are the kinds of discussions you all are having to try to move this initiative forward?
Yes, absolutely. So to piggyback on what Sarah had shared, the piece I would say is relationships. Again, relationships in the classroom level with the students we serve, relationships among the different components of our school system. So nurses, counselors, our food service directors, our PE health teachers, our families, our community resources, and more. But really, at the end of the day, as leaders, we have to set the tone We need to make it a priority, but then also in all of our words and actions and what we present to our community and what we fund and what we set goals around and in what we measure, that really outlines our priorities. And I often say, look at your schedule, look at your priorities. So we need to make time, we need to invest in this work. And so we often say, let's keep the main thing. And here the main thing is supporting the whole child. And so again, everything we do needs to revolve and really connect back to that.
Absolutely. And that's why, Amy, I cannot thank you enough for, being on our very first MHS cast, to be able to share that, especially now that you're superintendent and all the things you're doing. And Andrew, I want you to wrap us up, because I see it two ways. You are doing some extraordinary work on the academic side, especially in your health and physical education classes. But also, I think every school can probably be doing just a little bit more, perhaps even 1% better at maybe their school wellness. And what would you say to those that are maybe thinking about either, leveling up maybe what they're doing academically, or certainly within school wellness context?
I would say just take a look and see where the gaps are. What is something that you can do better? What is something that you could potentially improve, or who is someone who needs help? Being able to identify that makes all the difference, and then just work with purpose, move towards that goal. Coming back to the SEL and what Sarah had said, not only is that one of the easiest and most impactful things that you can do by making that connection with the kids, but I know I'm going a little off script here, but it's also one of the most rewarding things, making those connections with those students and making them feel seen. And that's why we're all here. It's about the wellness of our students, and providing them with a safe environment. And so, it kind of goes back to what has been previously discussed. You can't provide that environment if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not taking care of your people. So having that entire healthy community, where, again, we begin with ourselves and then we take care of others, that actually presents those opportunities to improve, your community. If you really want to move forward, start looking at those opportunities and then move forward with purpose. How can I make this better for other people?
Absolutely. And actually, who's got the final word? It's actually one of our viewers. How cool is that? Sarah, we'll give you the privilege of actually reading the comment. Here we go. This is again from Dr. Kim Ballard, and let you hear what she has to say.
Yeah, it's so inspiring to hear even small steps are bringing positivity to the lives of our children. Wow. Yeah, and that's true. It can be the smallest thing. It can be the smallest thing. It can be saying hi to that kid that has his hoodie up every day, and you just say hi to him, and he may never say hi back, but he will remember every day they said hi to me. Every day I mattered. So
Absolutely. And Kim, thank you so much for joining us and making some comments throughout the broadcast. We certainly appreciate all that you're doing with Shape America, and certainly tackling using SEL, using the Wisc model, and certainly with your theme of presidency, that is servant leadership. And you're exactly right. Even the smallest things can make the biggest difference. And in case you're wondering about resources, you can go to the www.mohealthyschools.com. Our website is loaded with resources. Again, we're connected with lots of organizations, including the CDC and CDC Healthy Schools. And in case you're wondering, what is the next broadcast going to be right here on the MHS cast? Well, here you go. We're going to be talking about, in November, it is National Diabetes Month. And we're going to have another panel of some great experts that are going to join us as we dive into diabetes management in schools. Again, another big topic that we're going to tackle. And I just hope everyone can come back. Just check on Twitter. Certainly, we'll be putting announcements out that you can see. But we hope to have you, back on for that episode. And right here, Kim, exactly. It's about servant leadership. That's why we do what we do. It's exactly right. So I hope everyone can join us for that broadcast coming up in just a few weeks. And to wrap things up, I want to thank our guests, Andrew and Amy. Again, it's been such an amazing relationship and journey we've actually had together. I always love when I get a chance to visit Bayless and you and your team and all the construction that's going on. And stay tuned, our viewers, because next week we're going to have our kickoff of our fall On the Move Mo School Success Story, featuring the latest with what's going on at Bayless Schools. Also, Sarah, thank you so much. This has been incredible. Again, when we were first talking about ideas, I know that Marge and you had talked, and it just sparked. And next thing you knew, as we were talking on the communication side, that you and Marge had a great idea for an episode, and this was a fantastic topic to dive into. Certainly, mental health is still a big part of what's going on in our schools. However, by all coming together and just thinking strategically and tactically, and keeping our focus, as like Amy said, you got to keep the main thing. We are going to come out of this positive on the other side, because our kids, our students are our whys. And I know that that's going to happen. So I want to thank all of you. I hope you all viewers, just really enjoyed tonight's broadcast. And we'll see you next month right here on the MHS Cast live stream. Thank you and good night.